Just a reminder to kind of scooch in a little bit as people start filtering in. You know what happens after lunch. People start filtering a little bit later. So just make sure that we kind of move in towards the center, allowing more and more people in. We got about 2 or 3 more minutes, I think, so enjoy till then. Just as far as you can scooch.
Another little announcement real quick. We're going to try to have a Q&A session towards the end of this. What I would ask you, we're going to have one of our volunteers run around with a microphone, and we're going to try to get the microphone as quickly to you as possible. But if you're not able to get the microphone to you soon enough, please speak loud enough so we can hear you, and then we'll repeat the question on stage so everybody else can hear it as well. So hold those questions till afterward. We will try to give a little time for that. Just wanted to let you guys know. And please, if you can scoot to the middle as much as possible to leave the outside seats open, that'd be much appreciated. Thank you, guys.
Well, I think we're ready to begin the afternoon session kickoff. We've got 3 different YouTube people going to be talking about Alaska, so I'm excited to talk with you. Once again, my name's John. I'm with GeoAstro RV. We do astronomy in the national parks, and we're not doing that as we head down south. Our goal is, honestly, we want you to come and meet up with us, go online at our site, and for free, we'd like to meet you out in the middle of nowhere and do astronomy with you guys. So we're excited to be a part of this whole process. But yeah, just it's our retirement mission. So it's just something that we want to do it, and you'll see the astronomy trailer out there. We just love sharing the stars with people. I haven't talked with one of these that much, so I'm learning as I go. But we're excited to be a part of Epic Nomad TV. Okay, so we've got, I'm looking forward to this panel because I think this year, there's a good chance we might be heading to Alaska, if not now, very shortly. And I got questions. I'm going to be asking about the roads and and how hard are they. But really excited. We've got 3 different groups. The first one, Gary and Stacy Quimby, HANA Travels. They are absolutely wonderful people. I've had a blast spending the last year working with them. They have a HANA Travels Facebook. So you have an opportunity to take a look at what they have on YouTube and everything. Let's give those 2 a round of applause and have them come on up. I think a lot of you know the next 2, Nathan and Marrisa. And so Less Junk, More Journey. As a matter of fact, coming up very shortly on ENTV, you're going to see Less Junk, Even More Journey. So there'll be footage. It'll be a lot of the footage that you might not have seen yet. In fact, you won't have seen yet, and it'll be released on ENTV's platform. So that's one thing positive. So if I can have you guys come on up, give them a round of applause. And I had an opportunity a little while ago to watch a lot of HANA Travels YouTube, where I have actually seen and now have met these 2. So this is Janine Vance and Brock Rinkerhoff. Gosh, I got that out. That's good. They have a YouTube that's J9b2, goes with the whole names, Adventures. And they're on Facebook, and they also have Instagram. So can you give them a round of applause to have them come on out? And as Gary pointed out, we have a microphone down here and a microphone upstairs. So as towards the end, if we have questions, we're going to have you march back and forth to the microphone and We're going to repeat the question because we want to have this available later on online. So let's enjoy.
Well, Stacy, do you want to start us off on this one?
All right, we have cheat sheets here to help us out, keep us on topic. The first topic about going RVing to Alaska is you've got to cross the border twice going up, and you've got to cross the border twice coming back. And there's some restrictions and regulations that you've got to make sure that you're up to date on. And one is you do need a passport. I believe you can also cross into Canada with an enhanced driver's license, but the passport for us, we felt, was the easiest. Just make sure it doesn't expire before the time that you come back, because that could be a problem. Another thing is, if you've ever in your younger years accidentally maybe got pulled over for something that could be on your record, that could actually stop your trip real quick at the Canadian border. They don't like some of convictions that people could have, and they'll deny you entry. So if you have had a past incident, you might check with Border Patrol, Canadian Border Patrol, before you attempt to make the journey up to the border, because that would really, honestly, be a bad day to make a trip all the way up there and be turned around and told to go home. Also, a lot of us have furry pets with us, and there are requirements to cross the border with your animals. Basic ones, no longer is a health certificate necessary, but they do have to have current rabies certificates. So
that's a recent change,
it's
too.
a recent
Yes.
change in 18. So you don't have to go through the hassle of getting to the vet within 10 days of crossing. But make sure if your rabies vaccinations expire again when you're up in Alaska, that you visit a vet before you try to cross again. There's also a 30-day waiting period from the time that your pet gets vaccinated before the United States will let you cross back into the U.S. to make sure it's active. So that's another thing you just got to kind of keep on your calendar, on your radar. Also, if you have a brand new little puppy or kitten, they need to be over 4 months old because they need to be vaccinated at 3 months, and again, that 30-day waiting period. Finally, the don't bring across the border items. There's lots of food, like tomatoes. We lost tomatoes.
Yes, tomatoes, and I think Brock just said citrus, and
Yeah.
and
Did you guys lose anything at the border?
We eat all our food, so yeah, it was gone. We're stuffing it's a good excuse to stuff your face.
Right.
Before the border.
The
We would have
regulations
like a huge
changed.
salad before we crossed.
We go smorgasbord of everything that might be taken away. But the regulations change quite often, so that leave it up to you really need to look at the currents and see what happens. And I think a lot of it is they just want you to shop in Canada.
They do.
Spend your money in Canada. They like our money.
There's a bonus. Our money is worth more up there. So we get about a 30% discount, which is, spend the money. Liquor. You're only allowed a certain amount of liquor. We may have
Don't try to hide
that. But they were really nice. We were honest, and they said, have a nice day. And finally, if you carry firearms in your rig, no pistols. Over the border, that's just going to be a bad day. There are services. We address that on our videos. So if you want to learn more, I'm not going to tell you about it, but that's another big one that will stop you. And you'll probably never be allowed in Canada again.
Firearms is a whole big another subject that we could spend hours on. But I also wanted to back up a little bit and tell you guys, we visited Alaska in 2017. We left our home in Washington in May and returned mid-September. A beautiful trip. Brock and Janine were up there that year as well, I believe, in 2017, about the same time frame we were up there. When we kind of hopped and jumped over them and visited with them quite a bit. And these guys, well, you were there this year.
Well, we filmed here, so we left maybe across the border middle of June and then came back across late September, I guess, maybe. Early September, I guess we came back, yeah. So that was kind of our time frame.
So that gives you an idea of when we were there. And then, are you guys going back?
We want to go back, but once you get up there, I think buy RV is the best. But you start to see other cool ways to see Alaska as well.
Yes.
We had locals say, look, if you can come in the winter, which we're not driving up in the winter, so
Fairbanks.
we might fly up and spend a couple of weeks in a cabin. We might take a cruise. So we kind of intentionally left off a couple of cruise stops. So I think if we go back the next time, it might be a different way. The next time we
That's
go.
very nice. We've cruised up there several times. The cruising is great. We are going to go back up in 2019 and do a big trip with a bunch of people. Brock, Janine, when are you guys going back?
Yeah, we're going back in 19 as well with some more friends, bigger party.
Yeah.
As we said last year, we traveled loosely. We're usually never within or never 100 miles apart. So we get together on the weekends
Right.
and have adventures.
And now, how was your travel through Canada, Brock?
Canada was interesting, and some folks who went to Escapade this year may have seen a presentation that Janine and I did on RVing to Alaska, and the main takeaway that we actually had about going to Alaska was Canada. And we had so much fun. We saw so many beautiful places in Canada that we really, on our next trip, we're going to take a little bit more time through Canada. The provincial parks, there are also government parks, similar to what you would see as a state park. Those types of things are very inexpensive, easy to get in and out of, things like that. And then Banff and Jasper National Park, we get asked all the time. We've been full-time for almost 4 years. We work remote. Both of us work full-time jobs. And in that time, we get asked quite a bit, where's your favorite place to go? And we always try to qualify it and say, is it a park? Is it a beach? Is it, the desert? But we always come back to the most beautiful place we've ever been is Banff and Jasper National Park in Canada.
Yeah, Canada is
just
amazing.
an awesome place.
And we stopped at Banff and Jasper after being in Alaska all summer, and still, Alaska is incredible and the scenery is amazing, but Banff and Jasper really kind of blow it out of the water just in terms of, the drive that you make through Icefields Parkway is 100 miles of you think you just saw the most gorgeous sight, and then you turn the corner and it just keeps going and going and going. So don't discount Canada. Take your time as you go through there. We raced through it on the way up, but
How many days did it take you to get up?
we went from Washington State all the way up to Whitehorse, capital of the Yukon, which is about 1,500 miles over Memorial Day weekend. So we did it in 3 days.
1,500 miles in 3 days.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Not recommended.
We did it out of necessity just because we do work full time. We went up the Cassiar Highway, and there is absolutely no cell phone service on that route, which we knew ahead of time. So we did have to race up there. We took advantage of the long days.
By the way, fair warning, if anybody's thinking about going up the Cassiar, it's beautiful, but there is a one-lane wooden bridge 220 feet over the water before you get to, I forget what park it was.
exciting.
And you don't have a choice. You are going over that bridge.
There's no turning around.
Yeah.
It's
But
that bridge.
I do want to touch on the provincial parks real quick because they are similar to state parks, what we have here, but they are incredible. Most of them do not have any kind of hookup, so you will be, without the water and electric, but they're very affordable. They were, I think, $12 Canadian, so $9 for us, the exchange rate when we were up there.
In cash.
Yeah, bring cash, and if you bring U.S. cash, you will be paying $12. If you bring Canadian cash, you'll be paying $12. So make sure you have it, otherwise you'll end up paying a little bit more. The other tip I have there is they have an unlimited supply of wood for you if you want to make campfires, but it is not split, so you will need to bring a splitter. Otherwise, you won't be able to have a fire.
And the $12 is most of all of Yukon, but BC can be a little more expensive at their
Yep.
provincial parks, anywhere up to $26 a night, like at Laird Hot Springs.
And as they said,
Always worth
if you
it.
don't have the correct change, they will graciously take your donation if you have American money.
Yeah. There is no change provided. It's an envelope system.
Okay, hey, so
one,
let's.
one other thing
okay.
about going through Canada, we just learned this recently. But everybody ever seen those tennis racket bug swatter thingies? Get one of those. You're gonna need it. I love mine. She got me mine just a couple weeks ago. I love that thing.
It's
I can't
for
believe we've
bugs.
RV'd without it
It's
for
for
this
bugs.
long.
It's not for people.
It is not for people.
I zapped myself with it yesterday.
It actually lights you up a little bit, doesn't it?
I couldn't believe his reaction.
I was literally laying sideways going, what just happened?
Yeah. I think we have some other friends that did that recently too, and it does light you up a little bit.
Yeah.
So routes up through Canada, up to Alaska, Stacey. What kind of routes do we have to go?
There's 3 main ways up to Alaska by vehicle. Basically, you have the Alaska Highway that starts in Dawson Creek, British Columbia. It's right on the border of Alberta and BC, about halfway up the Providence. So there's many different routes to get to the starting point, and that's mile 0
Mile 0 of the Alaska Highway.
Alaska Highway. And you can follow that all the way. And at Whitehorse, you're going to have some options because the Cass-Air Highway is another option. As Brock just mentioned, it's very beautiful. It's very, they're both remote, but there is absolutely no cell service at all on the Cass-Air. On the Alaska Highway, you're going to find cellular in all your little towns and villages as you're passing through, so you can make sure, stop, check in, see what's going on before you move on to the next town. The Cass-Air starts at Kitawanga. It's tiny little Kitawanga.
Good job.
And where that kind of is, if you're coming from the west, which that would be Prince Rupert, maybe you take partial of the Marine Highway and get off there and then drive up. Or from the east, you would get there from Prince George. Again, however you're making your way up through Canada, that's how you get over to the Cass-Air. And the third is the Marine Highway. If you want to leave the driving to someone else, it is a little more expensive route, but you park your rig on a ferry, you get a stateroom for a couple of nights, and you motor on up through the intercoastal...
through the Inside Passage.
Inside Passage.
And you get to be on the water. You get to see the towering mountains that rise from the sea.
Yeah, and you have
amazing.
several options. You can also see Southeast Alaska this way. It's the only way you're going to see Southeast Alaska other than Skagway or Haines, which are marine highway stops. And then farther up on the Kenai, you have Valdez, Whittier, and Homer, where you can get off the ferry.
And Nate, what kind of resources did you use to find your way through these locations?
Well, usually I'm driving. Marissa's doing some of the navigating, so we mainly relied on
I
that.
offer to drive. He
We're
doesn't
good,
take
we're
me
good.
up on it very much.
Stacey offers
Unless
to
he's
drive
desperate.
too, and for my sanity, I keep
Hey,
driving.
now,
If you see her
Janine
driving down
and
the road,
I had
something's
a girls' day.
Yeah, Janine
Well,
and Stacey
yes.
did have a girl. They drew like 200 miles or something
On
like
the
that one day.
Kenai, very
Yeah,
tiny
yeah, they
little
did-
road, so
Yes, they did great.
that
so
was fun.
It does happen once in a while.
Our biggest resource that we use, and you'll probably hear this word a lot, is the milepost. And I didn't know what that was. We were actually given a copy of it before we headed up. So we had the 2017 version, which you can buy an older version, but there might be a little bit of changes. So we did notice as we were using it, we're like, oh, this says there's a stop here, but now there's a no parking sign. So that can happen if you do buy the older version. But so maybe the newer version's a good idea. But the milepost is this huge book that will tell you every single thing along the way, which is awesome because a lot of times you don't have service. And if you don't plan ahead like we do, then I would just sit in the passenger seat and kind of plan out the trip as you go. But I would recommend looking the day ahead and not while you're driving because you can pass up some really awesome cinnamon rolls when you don't plan ahead.
Oh, yeah. They were great.
Cinnamon buns.
Cinnamon
Oh,
buns,
yeah,
yes.
I was
Yes.
so disappointed when we passed up, is it Brayburn? Is that what it was?
Yes,
Rayburn.
Rayburn
There
Lodge.
was not a turnaround
Great.
for 45 minutes, and Nathan's
No.
like, do you still want me to turn around? And I'm like,
We got one. It was good.
well, let me say, I sent out a SOS text. I knew somebody was behind us, and I was trying to get a text. I'm like, pick us up a cinnamon roll. So we did get one. But I would suggest maybe looking a day ahead and not as you're driving because, you know, you'll pass up some cool stuff. But it will tell you every little cool stop, the history behind it. I wouldn't travel without it because it's going to be your key information. It was amazing.
And really, as far as print resources, I mean, we're very digital, so that was actually new to us to be using. I mean, but we used it way more. Somebody gave it to us, and we're like, oh, we're all digital, but oh man, with no signal and not knowing what's next, I mean, I feel like it's a must-buy.
It's
that
got
you
all
need.
your maps,
Yes.
everything.
It's a very big deal, and this isn't quite digital, but I know a lot of people might use an atlas or a physical map. Instead of that, I know they're going to talk about apps in a minute, but we downloaded everything onto our phones for Google Maps before we left, so that we didn't necessarily rely. But definitely, if you want to have a physical map in your hand, I mean, going through Canada, and that's a great place where it's going to come in handy with your navigation skills, having that.
One other
Good.
really good tidbit is if you're navigating with the milepost, as soon as you hit mile 0, you zero out your odometer.
Your trip odometer zeroed out.
Same thing with the CAS area when you hit that point, because it will tell you how many miles to Watson Lake, or and you can kind of figure what's coming up next, because that road is long. It's over 1,400 miles.
It's kind of a confusing book to if you're planning a trip and you're sitting at home trying to thumb through that book. It's confusing because it's not laid out in any kind of chronological order. It's laid out based on mileposts
You can
of
read it
the highway.
backwards.
Yeah, you can read it backwards and you're still going forwards. It does make sense, but it's laid out by the mileposts of each different highway, so you can go to the different highway section and then read through it. And if you're going forward, you read it forward. If you're going backwards, you start from the backwards and read it backwards. It's really kind of a nice setup.
Well, it's a good thing too, I think, because each highway has its own name, and there's multiple names for some of the highways. So you want to get familiar with the book enough to know, because we were like, okay, we're on the Cassier and looking for the mile, or we didn't know the name of the highway sometimes that we're going to get on with, top of the world or whatever it might be in the milepost. So you need to be familiar with some of those names that they prefer to use in the milepost before you get out there, instead of, I'm not going to say if this ever happened to us or not, but for instance, if you're on the highway, you didn't know what it was called, and you're trying to dig it up in the milepost to see what was next. So we're kind of the how not to section over here, probably, but just eat a bunch of food and
We made it back. We're here. We made it.
Yeah, you made it back, so you were successful. All right, you want to, let's see where we're at.
It's Janine and
Yes, Brock and Janine, you guys are required to be connected to internet service and cellular service for your jobs.
Right.
So why don't you talk to us a little bit about that and your difficulties and how you overcame?
So when we first started this trip, we weren't actually sure if we were going to make it the entire summer, because we couldn't find anybody that had gone up there previously that could give us a reliable report on whether we could work full-time all summer and stay connected. So we were fully prepared to drive through Canada, get to Alaska, panic, and then turn around and come back. So we did have that as a contingency plan, but what we would say is, if you do still need to be connected and you still need to work full-time, it is very doable. We had very few problems.
So long as you have AT&T.
Right, so long as you have AT&T, and I'll let him talk a little bit more about that. And I know that they have a lot of other good tips on internet through Canada that has been discovered this past year. So it does change every year, but my main message would be, do not let an internet connection or a need for one stop you from going to Alaska, because you can do it.
And as far as Verizon goes, I had a prepaid plan that had 80 gigabytes a month that I called Verizon ahead of time and said, is this going to get throttled? They said, nope, it's not going to get throttled. You've paid, you're paying for that data access, and no matter what happens. They lied, and they will lie to you too.
And this is in Canada.
This is in Canada, and they will throttle you at half a gigabyte, which that...
A day.
Yeah,
That was noon
a
for
day.
Stacy.
Now, so if you do the math, then I physically could not even access my whole data plan within a month. And I called on speakerphone to their highest level of support, their international data support, basically. And the guy laughed and he says, yeah, you're not supposed to be throttled, but I don't know why you are, and there's nothing I can do about it. So, yeah, Verizon, and actually in Alaska, Verizon is pretty much useless unless you're in Anchorage, Fairbanks, one of the bigger cities. Other than that, it's all AT&T.
Glen Allen Corridor, Valdez, and McCarthy did really well on Verizon, on the Richardson, but everywhere else, I agree. AT&T won the "Can you hear me now?"
Yeah.
By far, yes.
Anything to add on internet there?
So I went cell phone, again, without planning, sometimes this happens, but I went cell phone plan crazy. We bought like 5 plans.
That he still has, and
Yeah,
I never know
she never
how
knows
to
what number
reach
to call me
him. I'm
on,
like,
but,
what number are you using? I don't know.
But,
We're trying to figure it out.
I can tell you what won't work. A couple other things that won't work, because we don't want you to freak out if you have a certain plan and go buy something if you don't have to. But and some of this is recent too, so you've always got to check before you go for that year to see what partnerships are going on. Because a lot of what's going on when you get in Alaska, especially, and Canada, because you've got different carriers, your main carriers, AT&T and Verizon, they've got partnerships with these main carriers in these countries. And so as long as that partnership's still going on, you're not going to be throttled, you won't be deprioritized and all that. But we noticed T-Mobile actually, and I think this happened recently, but they've partnered with GCI, which is the main provider in Alaska. So T-Mobile, in my mind, I'm not going to say it's as good as AT&T, but I'm also going to say I don't know if you have to like ditch your T-Mobile plan. If Canada is a little iffy, but it's not terrible. And then once you get in Alaska, the T-Mobile gets to partner with their main carrier, which is GCI, and use all their towers, and it's not deprioritized. Things that don't work, if you have an unlimited Verizon plan, you forget to shut it off. I'm not going to say who that happened to, but they will instantly slap you with a $50 fee or something like that for using it for 30 seconds. Yeah, definitely check your plan and make sure it's not going to be slapped on the wrist as soon as it crosses the border, too, is the other thing.
You know, there was...
What's that?
I was going to say there was one other thing that I
Yes.
just remembered about us going back through Canada was that AT&T does allow you to pay $10 a day to access your full data plan
They
without
do,
throttling.
but I think they've changed the plan since then. So again, it's check
Nate's
have a
point is good
solution.
to make sure
check
to check.
before you go, but also take whatever your provider says with a grain of salt because it may not actually be true. I do want to say one thing. We tried to get a Canadian cell phone plan when we were up there. While we were in Whitehorse, we went into the store just to see. We thought, well, maybe we could just buy a data package through Canada. And the guy was very nice in the store, and he very politely informed us that 1 gigabyte worth of data was going to cost us $50.
Ooh.
So we scrapped that plan pretty quickly.
Now here's the good news of all that. We are connected with a third-party provider on the AT&T network. If you want to learn more, you can go to our website, powhanatravels.com, and there's a link that says Get Connected. We have a partnership for $120 a month, unlimited AT&T. No throttling, no contract, month-to-month service, and it works in Canada. All you have to do is buy...
That's a new addition
It's
to
a new
it.
plan. All you have to do is buy a second SIM card. Our provider will activate that for you. So when you're traveling through Canada, you will be able to have unlimited, unthrottled service on the partnered towers with AT&T.
Have we talked to anybody who has verified that service?
The provider himself has been up there and
Okay.
it works.
Okay, I wasn't sure if that's
So,
happened yet.
and it works in Canada, or it works in the lower 48, and it works in Alaska. Sometimes with being a YouTuber, you can imagine we go through a lot of data, and sometimes we use 300 gigs a month, and I've never been throttled on this plan.
And
so.
this plan that Stacy's talking about, we've actually had it for a year and a few months.
We bought it when we got to Toke because we realized very quickly we needed an alternative plan, and he's very good about shipping wherever you need something shipped.
And
so
it's a jetpack,
And
so
it's
you
been
can
a
take
it's
it
been a
with you.
great experience for us, for sure.
So
Well,
if you
since
want
we're on
more
the-
info, go to our website.
Right, and since we're on the technology topic now, what kind of apps did we all use on our trips through Canada and Alaska?
Pretty much all the standard ones that we all use as RVers. There's Compendium, freecampsites.net, overnightrvparking.com. Google Earth sometimes can get you in trouble.
Yeah, we found that out.
We got in trouble in Valdez.
Nate, Marissa, did you guys use any specific apps or anything like that? Or
I know one trend you're going to see is in the U.S., you go to any campground, you're going to see 20, 30, 50 reviews. You get up there and there may be no reviews. So you have to learn to use Google Earth a lot, I feel like, if you can, at least to try to scope out the area, and especially if you're going to be boondocking some. There may not be a lot of information on that area, so you're seeing if it looks like you could get in with your rig. And I mean, it's the good news. I think a lot of people went this year. I think a lot of people are going next year, and we may touch on this. But if you can get into a Facebook group of some sort,
I
where
was
people-
just going to go
Yes.
there.
Going to give you live updates.
So-
Good stuff gets washed out too. So it's
Gary and I, you all know us as Powhana Travels, but we have been taking our channel and basically just focusing on Alaska. and RVing to Alaska. And on Facebook, our presence is actually RVing to Alaska. And with that, we have some subgroups. Every year is a new group page. And so there's an RVing to Alaska 2017, 18, 19, and there's even a 20 page built. And we go in there, and every Monday night, Gary and I do a podcast.
Not quite.
Well, we took
We were
this
taking a
week
break
and
these
next
last
week
couple
off. But we do a podcast every Monday night, talk about RVing to Alaska. And the community, as they travel, they share where they're camping, where they're eating. And we have these little decals that we sell to our members. And it's identifiable when you're in a campground that, oh, this person's in my RVing to Alaska group. And then they start having happy hours and traveling together. And it's a community on the road.
We've developed the decals mainly so we can identify people because connectivity is so difficult up there. So some of these other apps for location services and all that aren't working as well, but having an actual decal that you can spot identifies you as a RVing to Alaska 2019 member or 18 member, and then you can go meet them up and talk about your journeys and maybe join in with some new friends and new community.
Yep, and we're going to be starting an RVingToAlaska.com webpage that will have a lot of the information that we share on our Facebook groups.
Very good. Let's move on to a little bit different kind of topic now. Like emergency services. As you're traveling through Canada and Alaska, there's a lot of remote locations and a lot of small towns. They don't always have the best services available. So Nate and Marrisa, did you come across any reason to use any kind of emergency services at all?
We had something happen, yeah. Well, round Denali, so.
Yeah, well, when we went up there, we thought, well, you know, we've always been trying to have a baby, and I'm like, well, it probably won't happen up there, and then it did, so that's a good problem to have. So, yeah, finding medical services, and we were in a remote area, can be kind of tricky, and the wait can be long sometimes too. And when you're traveling, you're moving from place to place, and we were on a time frame, like, I got to get out of here in a month. The snow's coming, so. It is possible. We found a Christian service that offered ultrasounds, so there are things available even out in the wilderness. I mean, because you know they have babies there too. So that was the service we used, and it was really good and kind and.
You might have to think outside the box instead of just
Yeah.
going to maybe like just say, well, let's get to the emergency room right away. I mean, maybe there's another company that specializes in what you need if you broke your arm or something like that, that if you can do that, you might get in faster. And as far as insurance, I mean, that gets into a whole other deal based on your state and things like that. From Tennessee, I can say that it's pretty good for out of state. We called ahead of time, so you definitely want to call. Not just physical health insurance. I mean, you're checking on your car insurance, your vehicle insurance and everything else to make sure stuff's going to be covered. Roadside assistance, you want to make sure it's going to be covered. And I know they may know more. Are you guys sure on which ones cover breakdowns,
Yeah.
whether it's Canada or
Yeah,
anywhere?
I
We
think
even
it changes
joined-
a lot, so you gotta kind of have to be current on your current policy.
We also joined a helicopter medical flight
Right.
service out of Alaska. It was only $49, I believe, for the entire year. Covered our family members, and it would also cover in
Are you
Western.
talking about me?
Well, yeah,
Because
you.
I'm kind of accident prone.
It also covered in Western Canada, which was really nice. That we just, if you're that remote, that we knew that a helicopter could get to us if necessary. Also,
Is there what little
CoachNet,
yeah, CoachNet's great for services.
FMCA, those services do work up there. You just might have to wait a little bit longer.
Yeah, luckily we didn't have to test much of that out. But
Did you guys look at any little small clinics in the villages that you stopped by, or how did you?
Where were we
How
when
did you
we-
find that service?
We were close to the fair, and the fair was in Palmer, and so I just typed in like women's services near me, because I had tried to get in with an OBGYN, and the appointment was going to be a month later, and I'm like, well, that won't help us here, so just type in near me, and just made a couple phone calls, and people were very like, well, have you tried this place? And I think somebody pointed me in the right direction, and so they were very kind about it and gracious.
And I think most of the larger cities, Whitehorse and Fairbanks and Anchorage, they're going to have full hospital services and all that stuff. So it's not like they're that remote where there's no services.
In
So-
Canada, too, just be prepared. You're going to probably pay a lot more than you would normally pay
Right.
in the lower 48 or Alaska. Anything else you want to add? Tire plugs, windshield things,
Yeah.
make sure you also those are emergency services too. You got to be prepared to kind of help
Funny
yourself.
side story about that, going up the Dalton Highway
Yes,
to
yes.
to the Arctic Ocean. Us four were traveling, and we came across, it was just north of,
Arctic Circle, right
Yeah,
just north of the Arctic
Arctic
Circle,
Circle,
at
yeah.
the Arctic Circle
and
stop.
there was a group of guys in a Durango, and they actually had a flat tire and literally looked at us like we don't know what to do. And Gary and I,
Yeah, they didn't have a spare. They didn't have tire plugs. They
Yeah.
were just hoping for
It's
the
like
best.
I got my tire plugs. I grabbed my tire plugs. I think Brock, you grabbed your air compressor, and we took care of these locals. The ironic thing is two of the guys worked at an auto parts store, and they weren't prepared to drive the highway. It was
What-
just crazy.
One thing too is if you ever see another motorhome, fifth wheel, or anyone pulled over on the side of the road, and they look like they may be in trouble, stop, ask if they need
Right.
help, because you just don't know. It's very remote.
Yeah, we're traveling down through Canada. On our way home, I think we just crossed over the Canadian border into Canada again, and there was a stock trailer in front of us. It was one of those stock trailer, horse trailer with the living quarters in it as well. And I saw that he blew a tire. It's like, oh, so I slowed down real quick and pulled over and went up for assistance. And he was like, no, I knew this was going to happen. I've got my tire here. I got my jack. I brought everything just in case. So he knew it was going to happen. But, still, it's just Good Samaritan kind of stuff. And if it happens to him, it may happen to you. So it's always nice to pay it forward.
Brock and Janine, do you want to tell everybody how to save a little money when up in Alaska?
Yes, this is one of my favorite topics, actually. So there were when we were there. I don't know what it was like this year, but there are 2 discount books that I want to highlight. The first one, and the most common one I think you'll hear about, is called the Tour Saver book. That has a lot of 2-for-1 deals. So for various tours throughout Alaska, whether it's fishing or glacier hikes or helicopter tours or flight seeing tours, and everything that's in there I think is 2-for-1. So we had purchased that one when we went up, and then when we got there we found out about another book that is about half of the price to buy up front, and it's called the Northern Lights book. You can buy it when you're up in Alaska, and it'll save you some on shipping, and that is more similar to the entertainment books that we have down here. So it has a lot of the same coupons as the Tour Saver in terms of various tours throughout the country, but it also offers you restaurant discounts. So especially some of the more popular restaurants in Anchorage, it has discounts there. Haircuts, yeah.
Oil changes.
Yeah, it's like
All
more of
the
your daily
standard.
needs versus entertainment needs, I guess is what it was. It seemed
Right, but like I said, it does overlap a bit with the Tour Saver. So both of them are pretty good about on their website listing out all of the deals they have, so you can go on there and kind of see, which one may work best for you. Like I said, we bought both of them because there was tours in both that weren't shared that we wanted to do, and we found it to be very valuable. But don't overlook the Northern Lights book if you hear about Tour Saver, because we really got a lot of use and savings out of that book.
and what I would say about these is in this couple here, she's the one who's always looking for the deal. I'm the kind of guy that goes into the grocery store, into the BOGO, buy one, get one free, and I take one, and she goes, what are you doing?
You're
the
the
other
kind of
one.
I
guy-
didn't notice.
But
So-
when
so
every
I-
tour is $100 or
Yeah.
more,
So
you
I-
save a lot.
Yeah.
I don't generally, do the whole coupons and tour books and all this stuff, but I would have to say that for a lot of things that we did, they were a tremendous value. And I think the second one was $50 or something like that.
I think we paid $45 or $50 for the Northern Lights, and the Tour Saver was more like 90 something. But again, if you're going on one tour and you're saving
pays for
$100
itself.
just on that tour, it's going to pay for itself. So we used several out of there, and it made a difference.
Nate, you took quite a few tours and flight seeing stuff. You guys, it was amazing what you guys did. Did
Loved-
you use any of
loved
the
your
coupon
adventures.
books at all for that?
We used it a couple times, and what's really neat is we kind of traded with some people too, which is something you can do if there's stuff you'll never do, and when you're meeting people along the way. So we had people say, hey, we're not going to do this. Do you want to do this? And I'm like, cool. Do you want to look at this and see what you might use? So that's an option too that we did with
So
some
you
people.
exchange coupons
Yeah,
from one book to the
yeah,
other
Well,
kind of thing.
You've got to exchange books though normally
Yeah,
because
Tour
you
Saver.
can't tear your coupons out of the Tour Saver.
The Northern Lights when
Yeah.
you can.
That
That's
one
the
you
one I
can,
had.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Oh,
Northern
perfect.
Lights.
That's great.
Yeah. So we went on Portage Glacier. I went with my sister and got buy one get one free for that. So it's really handy to have.
That's good. Yeah, the coupon books are nice because those tours, if you're to buy them for yourself, they're pretty expensive.
Yeah, I think you and I did about 10 paid tours.
Yeah.
And we paid a total of $1,300 over the summer. So, and they were all buy one, get one. So that would have been $2,600
So we
had we
saved
paid full
50% on our
price.
tours. So we paid for 10 books.
Yeah.
Anyway, or more. Now, this is one of the most least favorite questions RVers are asked.
No,
But
no,
we're
no,
gonna
no, no,
ask.
no, no.
Oh,
You
miscellaneous
missed
stuff?
one.
Oh, I missed one.
Nate and
Well-
Marissa, we're going to talk about like
Oh,
the Midnight Sun,
that's right,
and
yes.
Northern Lights. That's why we go to Alaska, right?
Exactly. Go ahead.
So you mean do Midnight Sun?
Go ahead.
So Midnight Sun is in Fairbanks. June 21st is when it was in 2018. So that was kind of like when we left Wellington after filming, getting to Alaska, we wanted to get up there by June 21st to experience the events for the Midnight Sun.
And they have events in other areas in Alaska, but Fairbanks kind of has the big festival and the 10K that a lot of people go to. So that's why Fairbanks at that date was kind of our goal.
I believe we are all Midnight Fun Sun Run
we
runners.
ran
All six
the
of us.
10K.
Which sounded like a terrible idea at the time. When I was talking to my
Yes.
mom on the phone, I'm like, we're running a 10K at midnight with Hensley pushing her in a stroller. And I'm like, that sounds like a bad idea. Why did I sign up for that? But we actually had so much fun. I'll tell
It was
you,
a
Six
blast.
miles.
Alaskans know how to have fun. They don't get a lot of sunlight, so they take advantage when it's pure sunlight. And it was a really good time. We had a lot of fun running that.
Well, I think to kind of sandwich the events, you've got sort of like Alaskans are basically celebrating summer. If you can imagine, I mean, you've been in darkness and cold for months and months. I mean, so they are celebrating that the summer's coming in with the midnight, with everything going on in Fairbanks around the 21st, which is a little different date every year probably. But and then it's sandwiched on the other end. You've got the fair is kind of like where they're kind of celebrating the last of everything starting to it's kind of going to get cold again and everything. But we loved the fair. We loved the sun run. It was if you want to get a taste for the locals and what the locals enjoy and what they're like, I felt like more than anything, those two events that we did, other than just randomly running into people, but the sun run, you're actually running through the neighborhoods. You're getting to see people like just cheering you on from their house and stuff. I mean, they're super excited.
Running 6 miles and then taking free beer on the course. Not a good idea.
What are you talking about?
But those two events to me stick out a lot if you want to really get to know the local experience. We like those, and of course the Northern Lights too. Oh my goodness, it's just amazing.
Well, what you were talking about with the dates, that was kind of our goal, was doing Fairbanks was for the Midnight Sun Festival, and then we wanted to stay the last 2 weeks of August is Palmer, the State Fair, which is where you'll see those huge vegetables and all their interesting things they have. So those were our two dates that we wanted to hit, and then we left after the fair. And we wanted to see the Northern Lights. That's why we hung around as far as we did. When we left here in May, I think we talked to you guys and was like, when did you see the lights? And most people will say, that the last week or so of August, first week of September. So that was kind of our goal. And our video just come out on that. I don't know if anybody had seen it, but we thought we thought we were not going to get to see them. We tried so hard.
Yeah, you've got to remember that it's light all night long until about mid-July is when it starts getting dark. And I think our first real night of darkness was at the very end of July. And then it took us a whole month until September 5th. Or no, September 1st, I think we saw our first Northern Lights.
It was kind of a celebration to see stars for the first time.
Yes, I miss stars. You
One-
never think that.
One tip I would add about that, when we learned this the hard way, when you go, bring a way to black out your rig on the inside.
Yeah.
Because when we went, it really plays on your mind that it's light all the time and you don't have that normal trigger to go to sleep or anything like that. And we scrambled once we got up to into the Yukon that we couldn't sleep. We'd be out at a campfire at 11:30 at night, and both of us have to work in the morning just going,
Brightest day.
I'd set an
beautiful out
alarm
here."
to tell me to get ready for bed.
You don't
and
realize.
It takes you about 2 weeks to adjust. How did little Hensley
Well,
do?
I'm a
Right.
parenting fail here. I've always told her whole life that the sun's going to sleep, so it's time for her to go to sleep. Little did I know we would spend the summer in Alaska one year, and so she fought that for months and months and months. So yeah, definitely have everybody everything blacked out
And the-
because we would have to kind of even trick her mind sometimes and be like, okay, where'd the sun go?
Another little tidbit is most of the RV exodus out of the state they start around August 1st. So the state gets a little quiet in August, and stay later, because you're not going to see the northern lights on August 1st, let me tell you. But if you can hold out and deal with some colder temperatures and stay at least into the very beginning of September, you're going to have a really good shot.
And it's worth it.
Yes,
I
it is.
saw some
Amazing.
photos
You
guys
won't
took
get much
recently. It was
sleep
really
if the
nice.
lights are out. And
Right.
that's the term people say, the lights are out. You know, huh? Okay.
So, Brock, what was your favorite spot in Alaska? This is at least favorite question that I was alluding to earlier. Your
No, I love
your
this
highlight.
question. I love this question for Alaska, mainly because one of the things that I wanted to do when we went was to leave the coach in Fairbanks and drive the 500-mile dirt road up the Dalton Highway, the Hall Road, up to Prudhoe Bay, and go swim in the Arctic Ocean. And our rule was we were going to put our head under the water and all that stuff. Boy, that was a bad rule.
All the way under.
He screamed like a little
Oh,
girl.
like a little girl.
We have it on video.
So, but what I will say is that we had a great trip. We went with Gary and Stacy, and part of what we set out to do was we knew that we would probably take a rock chip to the windshield. We knew that that was just the cost of going, and we studied it, and we had gasoline with us and all that stuff. We rough camped. We'd gone north past Adigan Pass on the north slope, and we had tents, and we rough camped on the tundra. We actually went into kind of a more primitive campground, and then we have a Jeep. They had a 4x4, and we went down the river and set up tent on the tundra, and we camped out. We cooked out, ate some terrible food,
Oh,
and
freeze-dried food.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Well,
but-
there's a reason behind that. It was
Bears.
a lightweight trip.
yeah.
Yes.
And then we continued to the Arctic Ocean. By the way, you actually have to call ahead. Because to actually go to the ocean, you've got to take a little bit of a tour. It's fine. It's I think $20 or something like that.
They do a background check on you. real
Yeah, they
quick,
have to
too.
do a background
do.
check because they take you out through the oil fields.
24 hours in advance.
Yeah.
You have to register.
And then when we came back, we actually camped in the same spot. We both have drones, and so we got a lot of video footage up there. But to me, that was Alaska. That was going out rough camping, having a great time with friends, and doing something that a lot of people either don't want to do or felt that it's too gnarly, too rough to do.
What was the quote at the visitor center?
1%
1% of people who go to Fairbanks go to the Arctic Circle, and it was like 0.5% of those folks go. Even less than that, I think it was. Go to
Coldfoot and
Coldfoot,
Prudhoe
Dead
Bay.
Horse, and Prudhoe Bay.
And if
So-
you've been watching the pictures up here, if you've seen the different animals and stuff like that, a lot of that was shot as we traveled up the Dalton Highway. I was actually just looking. That's actually Denali. That was definitely my highlight for the trip. We did destroy our windshield in the process. We took a
I
rock.
think I helped you.
No, the one that
Once, but that
Once,
wasn't the
yeah.
main. That wasn't the main one.
we took a rock about the size of my fist straight to the windshield, and Janine happened to be looking down at the time because
At the milepost.
had she been looking up, it actually hit so hard it broke the inside layer of glass. So through the layered glass, and it actually shattered glass right into her lap. So she probably would have taken that to the face.
Yeah, but don't let that stop you from going up there. No.
The best
And
advice when those big trucks are coming at you, you
If
pull over.
If you pull over and slow down, 99.9% of them will do the same thing, and they're very courteous. We just happen to have this one truck driver that really didn't care, and he's the one that chucked the rock at us.
One of the other things, since we're on that subject, just real quick, a lot of people ask us, what are the road conditions like, things like that. It depends on the time of the season, and it depends on the exact road. But I will tell you that in our experience going up there, and we had a Class A coach, going up there was no tougher than driving to Fargo, North Dakota. It's you literally, it's roads, it's gas stations, you plan stuff, those kinds of things. So none of it was that bad.
And the cities are just enough to easily half a tank fill.
Yeah.
How about you guys? What was your favorite? I bet you it's Denali.
Maybe a flight tour, going to see the bears.
Oh, Denali.
I guess the flight. I know the flight was. The whole Denali area was pretty amazing.
Yeah, Denali.
But no, the flight. I think the flight out of Talkeetna over Denali and over the mountains, and because you got to think it's just so barren, and it's not like a normal flight you're on when you see people scurrying down below or traffic. I mean, you're seeing nothing. I mean, it's just wilderness.
Yeah, you can see, we flew over base camp where you could see people camping to climb Denali. Yeah. And it was, you flew through gorges, and it was just like nothing we'd ever seen before. And I think we both agreed it was probably like the coolest thing we've done. We've been on the road almost 4 years, and I'd have to say it's the coolest thing we've ever done. There's nothing like it, honestly.
I think our favorite part was our Escapers Convergence. We are escaper.
I have one too.
I know.
Mine's different than Brock's. We disagree.
But we held an Escapers Convergence up in Alaska, up in the middle of the Kenai, and it was a lot of fun. And we're going to do it again in 19. So if you're an Escapers member and you're going to make the journey with us next year, we're going to be camping in Isabel Pass.
Exactly, and I think
which is your
that's
favorite
my
part.
favorite part of the trip. It's on the south slope of the Alaskan Range, which runs kind of east-west through the big state of Alaska. And we were parked on this huge open valley, looking at 8,000-foot glacier-covered peaks, and it was right towards the beginning of fall, which doesn't sound like, or beginning of September, which is actually right in the middle of fall. So we could see the colors changing.
That's the Alaskan Range right there, guys.
Right. We could see the colors changing every day. You know, the colors were just the reds, the oranges. It was beautiful.
Yeah, that's Denali in the middle. Well, it's gone, but sorry, I'll stop.
Oh,
That is seriously
So
how
distracting.
fast Denali disappears, too. Like,
yeah,
it's like, it's out, and then...
We didn't see Denali
Only
at all.
30%
Yeah.
of people that go to Alaska get to, or try to see Denali actually get to see
Well,
it.
that's why we
We got
recommend giving your
66% up here.
Yeah,
but
recommend
we
giving
have-
yourself extra time in that area if that's a goal of yours to see the mountain, because you never know. Like, we gave ourselves like extra time, and that's how we got to see it.
Weather is very active up there too, so it could be visible in the afternoon or a morning and not on the other part of that day.
We had a neighbor trying to climb Denali this year. It took him 20 days to finally be able to summit. So.
They're only allowed 21 days to be at base camp, so they went up on their last day.
Janine, what was your favorite so we can wrap up?
So my favorite day was probably Stacy's least favorite day in
Oh,
Alaska.
that was a great day.
I almost died.
She was fine. We
Yes, she was.
It's that day up there. So we drove. There's a 60-mile dirt road that goes out to the towns of McCarthy and Kennecott, and we drove out there.
Oh, I was thinking about another least favorite
Oh
day
no,
of
no,
yours,
not
but
the
yeah.
rafting.
Okay.
That was the second worst day, maybe. So we drove out there. Brock and I signed up to do an ice climbing trip, and Stacy and Gary did a glacier hike. So they were hiking on the same glacier.
It was supposed to
as
be a
us.
half day and turned into a whole day because I was too slow.
It was worth it.
But we went out there and we spent the whole day on the glacier. We got to do ice climbing in 2 different spots. It is not your typical, you go out and they have all the ropes set up and everything ready to go. You literally carry everything with you. The guides climb up to the top. You know, they put the spikes in for that climb. They set all the ropes up, you know, and then they help you with that process. You have the ice picks and stuff and your crampons to go into the ice. But it was, for me, the highlight of my Alaska trip. It was unbelievable. I had such a good time.
And you may have seen the image. There's an image of her, and everybody always assumes it's me. It's not. It's her at the very top, putting in the ice pick or the ice axe right at the very top of it, and it's probably cycled through a couple times now. But yeah. That was a great
But
day.
if you get a chance to go out to McCarthy and Kennecott, it is a very tiny, cute little place. You know, you can do a tour out there. You can do a glacier hike. It's worth driving out there and visiting that area. So don't miss it.
Let's see. I think we're going to kind of wrap it up. Let's get a couple of questions. If we can get the house lights up just a little bit so I can see. Let's get a couple of questions real quick.
Any?
Let's put some hands up there. If you got a question, we'll have John run to
So,
you.
well, that's loud. So we also have a mic on the second level there. So if anyone has a question up
Any
there, we have
questions?
a mic up there. We have a mic down here. I'll bring the mic for you.
Any questions at all?
As you know, Nathan Marrisa documented their summer pretty well, and plus with the Less Junk, Even More Journey coming up on ENTV, we have over 80 videos on the subject on our YouTube channel, and they've got tons of amazing, beautiful pictures.
We have lots of footage.
Oh,
We
yeah.
just haven't done anything
amazing.
We're
with
gonna have
it
you
I
yet.
have
show
one
me.
question
It's like,
right
that's
here.
actually where the convergence was at, right in that spot.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful lake.
We have our first question.
Right here.
Okay, you guys touched on it a little bit, but could you talk a little bit more about the road conditions, preparations for like the windshields? I know you guys put the rot guards on. Anything else we should be prepared for? I know I've heard horror stories of people going up there, and I don't.
Have you driven back roads USA?
all the time?
Okay, you've
maybe-
driven to Alaska pretty much.
Let's have Nate answer that one because you were up there most recently.
Yeah, I think it does depend, like they said, on the when you're leaving. On the way up, it seems like it's usually going to be kind of graded a little better, not quite as bad. On the way back, you can expect to be a little bit different. But in general, it's not that bad. I mean, if you're going to stay, the main route is kind of like a triangle, if you look at the map of Alaska. And so if you're just going to do that triangle and stay on those main roads, I mean, carry your spare, carry your tire plug, you know.
You do have
This-
to go slower.
this
You have to go
image-
slower.
This image is actually, that was the Dalton Highway, so that dirt road, most people don't even go. So.
Do you have a question back there?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, I went to Canada last summer, and they actually took away my bear spray and pepper spray. So
Pepper spray is what
they
did it.
asked me if I had pepper spray or bear spray, and they did take it away from
So
me. So that's kind of important if
What
you're
we
going to
understood
Alaska.
with that when we crossed in, the personal self-defense spray is generally categorized as pepper spray and self-defense against other
It cannot.
assailants, human assailants. The canisters need to actually say this is a bear defense spray.
It can't have anything to do with human
Right.
defense.
And it needs to be the 5 ounces or larger, the larger canisters. He took the bear spray too.
All right.
Wow.
He must have just wanted
He had
some
a
bear
bad
spray.
day. That's the other thing you got to learn with these
Sorry about
cross
Because
sorry,
that's
the experience wasn't very
expensive.
good for you.
Those things are, yeah, they're expensive.
Yeah.
They are, like 50
It's
bucks.
going to matter if that guy's having a bad day, and he's going to pick on you. If he's having a good day,
Right.
you're going to have it easy.
And that's another thing about crossing the border. You know, when you approach a border crossing, if you're wearing a cap, take your cap off, set it on the dash. If you're wearing sunglasses, remove your sunglasses. And eye contact with them.
Do not give extra information.
give extra
Answer their
information.
question and move on.
Oh.
Be
Also-
honest and truthful, but be short with your answer. Don't
Also,
give too much.
don't even think about bringing ammunition for a handgun. No
Hey.
parts, no.
We did cross over with 9mm ammo, no
Yeah,
problem.
that
Okay,
was
that's
that was,
another
that
day.
was silly on your
They,
part.
they asked us very specifically about that.
If you're from
Anyway.
certain states, they hone in on it too.
Yes,
Like
Texas.
Texas,
Unfortunately,
Tennessee,
most
they're like,
of
now
you
where
are
is it? Where's the
Texas."
gun? We know it's in there. We're like,
I think a lot of us domicile in Texas.
All right, well, I think we need to wrap this up. We went a little long. If you have any other questions, I know we can answer personally. Just reach out to us on our
Perfect, yeah.
channels.
Yep.
Watch the videos, and don't be afraid to do it. Go to Alaska.
Alaska's not that untouchable.